What's going on, guys? Welcome back to WWE Network and Show, where I, Graham G. and Matthews, break down all the original content I watch on the WWE Network and on Peacock. And today we're talking the May 9th, 2022 edition of Raw Talk. No Jackie Redmond this week. I think she was once again gone to cover the Stanley Cup or whatever. She wasn't on Raw Talk last week or Talking Smack. This week we had Scott Stanford filling in for her alongside Matt Camp. They start off the show by recapping the Cody Rhodes Theory United States Championship match that saw Seth Rollins get involved. Cody won by DQ. Rollins standing tall over Cody in the end there. They then run down the biggest headlines from Monday's show, which I thought was a pretty good show overall. Unfortunately, that last hour was fucking bad. I have praised Raw recently. It has been a better show lately than it has been in a very long time, at least on the whole. But that third hour was fucking awful, and that is coming from someone who was there in the building. And it was just one bad segment or just one thing that people did not care about after the next, like at one after another. And the overall show, though, like I said, I thought was fine. So we then hear from, I almost said Austin Theory. I'm gonna have to get used to that. Theory, the United States champion, speaking backstage with Sarah Schreiber, and he says that Rollins' plan to attack Cody had nothing to do with him. Cody is good, and he proved that in their match on Monday, but he is not as good as him. And it's disappointing, he says. And he goes back to the whole Ali thing from Raw, where Ali lost to Ciampa, with The Miz serving as the special guest referee. He says that it's disappointing that Mustafa Ali can think that he can be handed a title shot, even with The Miz as special guest ref. You can't even beat Ciampa with Miz as the ref. I mean, what's wrong with you, he basically says. And he basically says his time as United States champion will last all day. And I'm thinking, I know that's his catchphrase, and that was supposed to be like this, oh, like what a cool, like he threw his catchphrase in there. And it sounded cool, but when you really think about it, when he says his championship run will last all day, that makes it sound like he's losing the championship by tomorrow. Well, he's only going to be champion for a day long, so maybe not the best phrase or the best context to be using that catchphrase in, but otherwise a fine promo from Theory, who continues to get better with the promos and shed the goofy aspects of his character, which is good to see. The special guest on this week's show is Jerry Lawler, unfortunately. He says no one closes the book on Seth Rollins, and notoriously he hates Cody Rhodes. We found that out the hard way a couple of weeks ago here on the show when he went fucking in on Cody for whatever reason. I don't know why. They probably told him to. Or he just genuinely does not like Cody Rhodes. Maybe Lawler is the biggest WWE mark there is and just hates AEW. I don't know. But he shit all over his tattoo a couple weeks ago and all this other shit. But anyway, he said that Theory had Rhodes beat, and Matt Camp agrees that this book cannot be closed after what happened on Raw with Rollins and Rhodes. They then recap the Bianca Belair-Asuka main event that went all of fucking 3 minutes. What a waste of time. I enjoyed the match for what it was, but it barely got started before it ended. Like, why even do the match if you're going to do yet another, 3 disqualifications on the same show? That is ridiculous. Scott Stanford says, I think Becky deserves a rematch. And Matt Camp reiterates, listen, we have no more automatic rematch clauses anymore. And I'm glad he brought that up. I mean, that was first introduced over 3 years ago, almost 3.5 years ago. And shockingly, they have stuck to it. Now, they will give former champions a rematch sometimes, but it's not automatic anymore. There's no more automatic rematches. And sometimes they will do that. In NXT, I think they'll do that sometimes. But they don't do it on the main roster. They introduced that back in late 2018, and they've actually shockingly stuck to it. I didn't think they would, but they did. So I like the fact that he brought that up. They then recap Alexa Bliss returning and beating Sonya Deville in quick fashion. Kevin Patrick, who I'll get to in a second, interviews Sonya Deville backstage, and Sonya's freaking out, and she lost her voice. My voice is still a little shot from being at Raw last night. But she says, I didn't get fired, and Kevin attempts to ask her questions. She freaks out, and then she tells him to get out, and that was it. So Kevin Patrick, I've mentioned this in almost every review I've done of Raw Talk in the last year and a half. I fucking love Kevin Patrick. This man is a gem. And anyone who doesn't watch Raw Talk probably doesn't see too much of Kevin Patrick. He is backstage on Raw quite a bit. He was on Raw this week interviewing Theory on that podium by the stage, which I thought was well done. I would like to see more of that. So he's been on the show now for well over a year. He was the one who replaced Charlie Caruso, who I did not like in the role. She did a good job overall, but Charlie was, in my opinion anyway, towards the end, just fucking annoying. I really like what Kevin Patrick was doing as the host of Raw Talk before they switched the format up last summer when they went back on the road. So anyway, we're leaving Raw last night. We're leaving the XL Center in Hartford, Alexis and I, and from a distance, I see fans meeting with Kevin Patrick. He was just standing there, not like a whole like a whole ass line of people, but like a few different people saw Kevin Patrick, stopped him, talking to him, taking pictures, and I ran up to him, and it sounds like the goofiest thing ever, but I fucking love this guy. He seems like the genuinely coolest guy you could possibly talk to, like the nicest dude. And I had a chance to chat with him for like 30 seconds or whatever. He was cool, got a picture, it's on my Twitter. And yeah, Kevin Patrick's the fucking man. So thanks to him for taking the time to take the picture and chat for, a brief minute. He was awesome. So yeah, I never thought I would get the chance to meet Kevin Patrick while walking out of Raw, but there we were in Hartford, and he was walking just in a regular hallway by the exit to the building, which I was not expecting. So very glad I got that opportunity. It's amazing how things work out that way. But anyway, I know I sound like I just met my idol, but I genuinely, Kevin Patrick is cool, so I thought that was a really awesome experience. Anyway, so back in the studio, Scott and Matt talk about the Raw Women's Division, picking up Alexa Bliss. They got Sonya there, Rhea Ripley turning heel. And also on the graphic was Lacey Evans. Now, as I'm reading this morning per PW Insider, and they aired the promo from Lacey Evans, like an abbreviated version of her 5 weeks of promos, kind of her sad backstory and whatever, which was a real story, I believe. They put like a brief version of that up on Raw last night. And it's coming out this morning, and I'll rant about this in more depth another time. PW Insider apparently reported that she is being put on the Raw brand as a fucking heel. Yes, I did think it was weird that they introduced her the way they did on SmackDown. I didn't think they would actually turn her heel. That is the absolute dumbest thing I have ever seen. If that is indeed true and they're bringing her back to TV as a heel, that is fucking ridiculous. At that point, just bring her back with the same character she was doing before she left. I mean, that is just... I can't emphasize how dumb that is. If they bring her in after doing all these promos, exploiting her backstory, crying for 5 weeks, and they turn her heel, it is not the same thing as Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle was not out there talking about the years of abuse he endured from his dad and all this other stuff, all these other sad stories that actually happened. He just talked about how great he was as an Olympian. That makes sense for people to boo. This does not make sense for people to boo. That is just fucking weird. And why would you even air the promos on SmackDown if the idea was to bring her to Raw? The answer is they had no idea, and they just did it on a whim. I mean, that is just beyond stupid to me. I think Lacey just... I mean, they're going to have her feud with Bianca, I mean, I guess, but I just think that's really dumb. I feel like the SmackDown could have used her. She's better off as a babyface at this point, and Raw, I don't know what the fuck she's going to do on Raw. They just got Alexa Bliss. I mean, I guess Alexa Bliss is going to be face, but... I don't think Raw needs I don't think Raw needs Lacey Evans. I know they want more heels, but they have Rhea now. They have Becky. Carmella and Zelina are just not credible singles heels, but I mean, I would have turned someone else heel before fucking Lacey Evans. That just seems ass backwards to me personally. Anyway, they talk about Rhea Ripley turning heel and how Bianca should be worried about her, kind of hinting at a potential championship clash down the road, before recapping the VIP lounge, where Bobby Lashley stormed the ring, laid out everyone in sight, setting up next week's steel cage match between himself and Omos. They then recap RK Bro against the Street Profits in a very hot opener for the Raw Tag Team titles. Great match. We hear backstage with Sarah Schreiber, RK Bro, the Raw Tag Team champions. Orton says they did indeed retain their titles unexpectedly. They were able to do it. It was an unexpected championship defense, but they were able to do it. Riddle says it kind of, reiterates they will unify the tag team titles. That's their current goal. And Orton says that, Riddle is blowing his mind. He also acknowledges, I know we have 30 seconds, Sarah, and he goes on to speak. So I guess they kind of know they only have 90 seconds to speak, which is so dumb. The show's fucking 25, 27 minutes long most weeks. You can't spend 5 minutes interviewing the talent, and instead we got to hear from Jerry the fucking Lawler. You know what I mean? Jerry the fucking King of Lawler. Who gives a shit? I'd rather hear longer interviews with RK Bro and Theory and people like that. That to me is so silly. But anyway, Orton says that Riddle's been blowing his mind lately with all the RKOs he's been hitting, including, on Raw last night, which was great, a great finish to that match. Also teased being on SmackDown, by the way, as well, because they will be on SmackDown this Friday. Jerry Lawler says that you shouldn't be stealing your partner's move. Okay. Matt Camp praises RK Bro's chemistry and how strong of a unit they are currently. Lawler says the Usos will have no trouble beating RK Bro when the time calls for it. But RK Bro are both motivated, not all, are both motivated to become, dual champions and get all the gold. And then Lawler says as far as next week's steel cage match and what advice he would give to Lashley, he should back out of it ahead of time. That's his grand advice to Bobby Lashley. And that was about it. Jerry Lawler, I guess they're probably telling him to act more heel on the show. He is just so fucking annoying. he is probably the worst guy. I mean, even worse than, even Rosenberg and Roberts have their moments. They're not bad, really. But Lawler is just awful. He offers absolutely nothing and takes away from these shows more than anything. So I watch for Kevin Patrick, and I think Scott Stanford I enjoy as well. Matt Camp is good too. So another good week of Raw talk. Nothing too must-see, but we did get RK Bro on the show. Sonya crying for 2 seconds. And Theory, a quick promo from him. So solid stuff. And again, it was very cool meeting Kevin Patrick on Monday's Raw, or after Monday's Raw. I know he's not listening right now, but thank you, Kevin, for taking the time. You were great, and I hope our paths cross again down the road. Thank you guys for checking out my review. I appreciate it. Be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. We'll be back tomorrow with hashtag AskGSM, so if you haven't already, check out all my other live reaction videos from Backlash, which I was at on Sunday, and Raw on Monday. Until then, guys, have an awesome one. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.